The council chamber was vast, its walls a patchwork of alien metals and glowing conduits, humming with the authority of hundreds of species. Representatives gathered, each reflecting the pride and technological mastery of their civilizations. Ships of unimaginable design floated outside the observation ports, a silent reminder of the scale of power present. Among these voices of experience, a message had circulated, an unsettling warning about humans. Human ships are special. You will soon find out why. Most dismissed it as legend or fear-mongering, remnants of old stories whispered in fringe sectors. Yet, there was an edge in the tone, a hint that the words were drawn from knowledge, not rumor. The humans themselves remained enigmatic. Their records were inconsistent, scattered, and contradictory. Logs described vessels as slow, cumbersome, poorly shielded, yet with remarkably high survival rates. Tactical analyses noted their lack of sophisticated maneuvering or advanced energy shields that other species relied upon. On paper, these ships should have been obsolete relics, vulnerable to even moderately advanced fleets. Yet, across decades, reports consistently hinted at losses where human presence was involved, losses that defied conventional understanding. Entire battle groups had vanished with minimal explanation. Survivors were scarce, and those few returned to their people haunted, refusing to describe the details. It was as though the humans operated according to rules that no other species had ever encountered, a system of combat alien in its philosophy. Admirals debated the threat, some dismissing the warnings as exaggeration, others recalling the redacted reports that refused scrutiny. In the training simulations, human tactics could not be accurately predicted. Algorithms failed repeatedly, unable to account for their patterns of engagement. The more simulations were run, the clearer it became. Humans did not behave according to any known doctrine. They were not defensive, nor were they aggressive in conventional terms. Observers noted their unyielding forward motion, the apparent indifference to damage, and the lack of panic even when ships were visibly compromised. The stories spoke of human vessels continuing to operate under conditions that would destroy almost any other fleet. There was a meticulousness to their resilience, a quiet defiance that seemed almost intentional, as if the ships themselves were extensions of a stubborn will. Younger factions, eager to expand and prove themselves, scoffed at the caution. They saw a chance to test their fleets against what they assumed were inferior vessels. They ignored the warnings, labeling them superstition and fearful exaggeration. Their pride was palpable. They had yet to encounter a challenge that required humility. The human reputation was murky, filled with contradictions and gaps. It was precisely this ambiguity that made the warning credible to some, and dismissible to others. However, the elders, those with direct experience, or with the wisdom to read between the lines, observed in silence. They remembered the battles their ancestors had lost against humans in far-flung systems. They remembered the inexplicable disappearances, the empty sectors, the vessels found long after conflicts had supposedly ended, eerily intact or bizarrely damaged. Records suggested humans were deliberate and calculating, yet their ships appeared ordinary. The mystery lay not in size, weapons, or speed, but in endurance and adaptability. Their designs seemed inefficient, but in practice, they were extraordinarily effective. Fleet compositions ignored conventional strategy, favoring a stubborn persistence over clever maneuvers. Every aspect suggested humans were unconcerned with the rules other species followed. Observers noticed patterns in historical encounters. Human convoys never fled, never panicked, and continued mission objectives even while under sustained attack. The warning made sense only in hindsight, a prescient statement about a species that defied expectation and undermined assumptions about technological superiority. The council adjourned with tension in the air. While some left to plot offensive strategies, others lingered uneasy. The young factions carried a dangerous confidence into the void, convinced they understood the challenge. Yet across the galaxy, the phrase circulated quietly among veterans. Human ships are special. You will soon find out why. It was no idle warning. It was an observation rooted in countless encounters and hard-won experience. Every species that had underestimated humans paid a hidden price, a cost not fully understood until it was too late. The human ships had yet to engage directly in this council's sector, but the stories alone were enough to seed doubt and unease, hinting at a looming revelation that would redefine how the galaxy measured power. The alien fleet approached the coordinates with overconfidence, sensors bristling with energy readings, expecting the human ships to appear fragile and uncoordinated. Across the void, human vessels waited, unremarkable in appearance, hulking and angular, with no shimmering energy shields or elegant designs that would normally intimidate even the most reckless adversary. To the aliens, these ships seemed outdated, inefficient, and a mockery of modern engineering. Communications channels were silent, aside from routine acknowledgments, stripped of emotion or rhetoric. The humans did not send taunts, broadcast warnings, or attempt negotiation. They simply moved according to protocols, as though time itself obeyed their rhythm. The engagement began without hesitation. Alien weapons flared, scattering plasma arcs that should have shredded any conventional ship. Impacts bounced harmlessly off the human hulls, which absorbed and dissipated energy in ways not predicted by tactical algorithms. Alien captains shouted orders to adjust targeting patterns, to focus fire on weakened points, yet each volley seemed to produce minimal results. The human vessels did not retreat or reorient defensively, they advanced steadily, maintaining formation with eerie precision. Damage that would have caused catastrophic failure in alien ships barely slowed them. One human vessel, missing a large section of its aft engines, continued forward motion with only minor adjustments from its crew. Sensors tracked the human fleet's movements, revealing an unsettling pattern. Ships were not coordinated according to the principles other species valued. They ignored conventional flanking maneuvers and avoided synchronized formations meant to optimize firepower. Instead, they spread unpredictably, constantly adjusting, compensating, and repairing mid-combat. Alien commanders realized that their own tactical assumptions were failing. Prediction models, simulation programs, even the instincts of experienced captains were inadequate. The humans were redefining the rules of engagement in real time, yet without chaos or hesitation. Every adjustment seemed deliberate, as if each vessel had been designed to endure, adapt, and persist beyond normal limits. Alien psychological warfare, normally effective, faltered instantly. Warnings, threats, and demands for surrender went unanswered. Human crews did not flinch when missiles tore through outer hull plating, nor when energy beams ignited compartments. The absence of fear, panic, or defensive posturing unnerved even veteran captains. They began to suspect that this was not arrogance but conditioning, a level of discipline that bordered on the incomprehensible. Each ship seemed less like a vessel and more like an extension of human will, able to continue fighting regardless of injury or loss. The more the aliens struck, the more resolute the humans appeared, converting the alien expectation of victory into growing uncertainty. As the battle intensified, a subtle but significant pattern emerged. Human weapons did not merely strike at shields or hulls, they targeted critical systems and command nodes, undermining enemy coordination rather than pursuing straightforward destruction. Alien vessels that initially believed they could outgun the humans found their own fleets fractured, unable to respond cohesively. Small groups of human ships exploited weaknesses that other species would have ignored, not through speed or firepower, but through calculated persistence. Every engagement became an exercise in endurance and attrition, demonstrating a form of tactical mastery entirely divorced from conventional metrics. By mid-battle, the alien fleet began to recognize a terrifying truth: human ships were not designed to flee, to retreat, or to surrender in the conventional sense. Losses did not break their resolve, casualties were accounted for, compensated, and endured. The humans appeared to treat each engagement as a proving ground, systematically neutralizing threats rather than reacting to them. The aliens had anticipated resistance but not relentless, methodical confrontation that disregarded immediate survival in favor of long-term effectiveness. The quiet, steady persistence of the human fleet was unlike anything encountered before, a new paradigm in combat that challenged assumptions and threatened morale more than any weapon ever could. Alien confidence eroded with every passing moment. Strategies that would have ensured victory against any other species faltered. Commanders began questioning the reliability of their data, their ships, and even their judgment. Somewhere, deep in the ranks, fear began to seed itself, subtle but undeniable. The humans did not celebrate victory or taunt the defeated, they simply advanced, unswerving, a demonstration that power was not always measured by firepower, speed, or finesse, but by the relentless endurance of the mind and will within a ship. By the end of the engagement, the aliens understood one immutable fact: human ships were not what they appeared to be. They were something far more dangerous, and the warning had been real. Alien tactical officers scrambled to analyze the battle data, attempting to understand how a fleet so unremarkable in appearance had neutralized forces far superior in speed, firepower, and sophistication. Sensor readings, weapon logs, and damage reports were compiled, yet patterns resisted conventional interpretation. Ships that should have been crippled continued operating, hull breaches sealed themselves, engines rerouted energy to compensate for catastrophic failures. The humans' resilience could not be explained by technology alone. Calculations failed. Simulations collapsed under assumptions that humans would respond like any other species. Something about their approach to warfare was fundamentally different, a philosophy embedded into every vessel, every crew, every system. Investigations revealed redundancy layered into every ship, not for efficiency, but for survivability. Systems duplicated themselves endlessly, with backups for backups, designed to function even when primary systems failed entirely. Where alien vessels relied on precision targeting and flawless coordination, human ships tolerated chaos. Crew protocols assumed failure and trained personnel to adapt instantaneously. In the middle of battle, damaged compartments were repaired or bypassed without slowing operations. Sensors, weapons, life support, and engines could all operate in degraded states simultaneously, making human vessels unpredictable and exceptionally durable. The aliens realized they were facing a doctrine where ships were built not to win every fight, but to survive when all logic dictated they should be destroyed. Human tactics emphasized persistence over clever maneuvers. Their formations were not designed for agility or rapid strike, they were designed to endure. Even when damaged, human ships maintained offensive pressure, targeting logistics hubs and command nodes rather than simply trying to destroy hulls. Alien vessels that relied on standard vulnerabilities discovered that these targets were often redundant or independently functional, meaning human attacks created cumulative effects rather than immediate destruction. Observers began to understand that humans did not fight for victory in the conventional sense. They fought to systematically dismantle the enemy's ability to operate, a long-term attrition strategy that defied alien assumptions about engagement duration and morale. Psychology played a critical role. Humans displayed an almost complete indifference to damage, casualties, and intimidation tactics. Ships continued their advance under conditions that would cause panic in any other species. Enemy attempts at communication, threats, or surrender signals were ignored or met with procedural acknowledgement. Alien crews began to recognize a disturbing pattern. Human crews treated loss as expected, danger as unavoidable, and adversity as irrelevant. There was no hesitation, no hesitation-induced chaos, no instinctive retreat. Every action, every repair, every offensive strike was executed with deliberate, calculated intent. This psychological endurance amplified the mechanical resilience of the ships, turning ordinary hardware into extensions of human will. The human strategic doctrine challenged assumptions of superiority. Alien analysts had trained their entire lives to prioritize precision, optimization, and avoidance of loss. Humans, by contrast, accepted attrition as inevitable and built systems to compensate for it. Ships were designed to be inefficient by conventional standards because inefficiency ensured survivability. Crews were trained for adaptability, redundancy, and improvisation, able to restore functionality in ways the aliens could not anticipate. Weapon systems were not flashy but functional. Defensive measures were minimal yet layered in unpredictable ways. Every aspect of human engineering and training seemed focused on a single goal: survive long enough to finish the mission, no matter the cost. By the end of analysis, alien officers arrived at an unsettling conclusion. Humans were not the fastest, not the most technologically advanced, not even the most organized by conventional measures. Yet in battle, humans consistently demonstrated the capacity to endure, adapt, and achieve objectives when all logic predicted failure. Their ships were special not because of superior systems, but because of the mindset encoded into them, a synergy of design and crew philosophy. The galaxy had underestimated humanity's resilience, focus, and refusal to be defeated. The warning from long ago was now clear. Human ships were dangerous precisely because they embodied humans themselves, a combination of adaptability, endurance, and unshakable will that no other species had yet confronted. Alien morale fractured as the human fleet advanced with unwavering purpose. Damage reports, once interpreted as temporary setbacks, now appeared as irrelevant statistics. Each vessel continued to operate under conditions that should have caused systemic collapse. Commanders attempted to regroup, but their forces faltered under the psychological weight of confronting opponents who either panicked nor retreated. Every alien strategy aimed at intimidation failed. The humans simply pressed forward, methodical, unyielding, as if the battle itself were a test of resolve rather than skill. Confusion spread quickly through the ranks, turning confident veterans into hesitant observers of a phenomenon they could not comprehend. The aliens attempted to use speed and maneuvering to outflank the human formation. Fleet divisions pivoted, trying to exploit perceived weaknesses in hull integrity or firing patterns. Each calculated strike met with unexpected outcomes. Weapons designed to bypass shields were absorbed. Precision volleys failed to disrupt formation. Sensors reported unusual energy signatures, localized surges that stabilized damaged sections. Crew logs noted that human engineers worked continuously, improvising repairs in real time. Alien captains watched in disbelief as systems that should have failed entirely continued operating, some vessels even taking on offensive positions while visibly compromised. The psychological impact was immediate. Confidence eroded, hesitation multiplied, and fear quietly replaced arrogance. Attempts at communication were equally unfruitful. Aliens broadcast threats, demands for surrender, and even offers of negotiation, all met with silence or terse acknowledgments. There was no taunting, no emotional display, just unrelenting forward movement. The absence of reaction itself became a weapon. Alien crews, trained to respond to aggression with proportional deterrence, struggled to adapt. Every effort to intimidate humans or force a retreat was met with the same procedural response: continued action. The alien commanders recognized too late that these were not conventional opponents reacting within predictable frameworks. Humans were operating under a doctrine entirely foreign, one that combined relentless endurance with calculated offense. Isolated alien vessels that attempted to flee or surrender were systematically intercepted. Humans did not celebrate victory. They simply neutralized threats while maintaining momentum. Those who survived relayed stories of engagement that defied understanding. Enemy reports described damaged hulls still moving, critical systems offline yet compensated for, and crews performing repairs mid-battle without any sign of stress or panic. Alien captains realized that the battle was not being fought for immediate victory but to establish a permanent advantage through attrition and sustained pressure. The humans' willingness to endure losses that other species would find unacceptable became their greatest weapon. By the end of the confrontation, the aliens faced a stark truth. Human ships were not the fastest, not the most technologically advanced, and not the largest. Yet they had dismantled the alien fleet's cohesion and shattered morale without displaying any extraordinary firepower. The battlefield had shifted from a contest of strength to a demonstration of endurance, adaptability, and psychological dominance. Alien forces withdrew, fragmented and shaken, carrying with them a profound understanding that humans redefined what it meant to be dangerous in space. The aftermath rippled throughout the galaxy. Reports circulated quickly among other species. Fleets previously confident now hesitated, commanders reconsidered tactics, and councils convened to discuss the implications. The story was not about the human ships alone, but about the principle they embodied: unwavering persistence, operational adaptability, and a refusal to surrender. Every species that underestimated humanity paid a steep cost, a lesson embedded into galactic memory. The warning that had once seemed hyperbolic now resonated universally. Human ships were not merely vessels. They were extensions of a species whose resilience and strategy could not be predicted, controlled, or easily countered. Galactic councils revised their protocols almost immediately. Human ships, once considered a curiosity, became an unspoken standard by which fleets measured their caution. Warnings circulated in operational briefings, Navy logs, and diplomatic channels: never engage without overwhelming advantage, avoid confrontation whenever possible. The humans did not demand this reputation, nor did they broadcast power. They simply continued their missions with relentless purpose. The galaxy's reaction was unanimous. Human vessels were no longer assessed solely on firepower, speed, or design. They were measured by the presence of the humans themselves and the unpredictable consequences that followed. Former skeptics relayed their experiences, often in hushed tones, describing encounters that defied their understanding. Battles fought on both strategic and psychological levels revealed that humans prioritized outcomes over convention, decisiveness over caution. Ship logs and after-action reports emphasized the same unnerving fact: human vessels persisted through conditions that would have rendered other fleets inoperable. Systems failed, crew casualties mounted, yet the mission continued. Analysis revealed that human design integrated endurance, redundancy, and improvisation into every component. Even when crippled, ships maintained operational capability, often achieving objectives that alien forces assumed impossible. This consistency cemented the human doctrine as a benchmark for resilience. The operational philosophy of humans reshaped galactic tactics. Fleets learned to anticipate engagement with humans differently, not through direct confrontation, but by avoidance and observation. Human ships operated as neutral zone enforcers, convoy protectors, and guardians of contested systems. Their presence alone influenced enemy behavior. Alien fleets began to factor psychological persistence into strategic planning, acknowledging that loss of morale often proved as lethal as weapons fire. The humans' refusal to panic, adaptively repair, and systematically neutralize threats forced other species to reconsider their definitions of power. Victory was no longer just destruction, it was endurance in the face of inevitability. Diplomatic and navigational laws evolved to reflect this understanding. Human ships were given unspoken deference, neutral sectors recognized, and transit routes adjusted to prevent unnecessary conflict. Former aggressors taught new generations about the consequences of underestimating human persistence, embedding caution into fleet doctrine and education. Reports emphasized that humans were not omnipotent but were uniquely dangerous when underestimated. Their effectiveness was derived not from overwhelming strength or superior technology, but from the combination of resilience, strategic patience, and psychological endurance. Alien species now calculated the cost of engagement not in damage inflicted, but in the mental and operational toll exacted by the human approach. Through all this, humans continued their work without grandiosity. Convoys moved, sectors were patrolled, and missions were completed with methodical efficiency. The galaxy recognized the immutable truth: human ships were special because they carried humans, and humans were extraordinary in their refusal to yield, to retreat, or to surrender. Where other species relied on speed, precision, or advanced technology, humans relied on determination, ingenuity, and an unshakable commitment to objectives. This principle became a cautionary standard, a measure of what it meant to endure and to impose consequence without boasting. The warning that had circulated for decades became law, a universal understanding encoded into every strategic and navigational protocol: underestimate humans at your peril. The reputation of human ships evolved into legend. Alien fleets learned to anticipate presence rather than tactics, preparing to avoid engagement entirely rather than risk confrontation. The psychological imprint of human endurance endured as strongly as any physical threat. Long after conflicts concluded, species recounted encounters not in terms of destruction, but in terms of human resilience, operational adaptability, and steadfast purpose. The galaxy accepted a profound reality: humans were not simply participants in interstellar conflict. They were a force that redefined expectations of survivability, strategy, and consequence. The human presence alone ensured caution, respect, and an enduring legacy of being truly exceptional.